Hello, my name is Fanny Rivers, and I'll be presenting to you today an introduction to parent communication and how to become more culturally responsive. What does it mean to be culturally competent? What does that involve? Well, it involves looking at the whole child, not just the person or the child or the parent you see when they walk into your classroom, but the whole development of that child, that student. This includes their culture, their ideas, their individual academic abilities, their communication styles, their family life, and so much more that make up what we call the whole child. When looking at the whole child, this it reminds me of the concept of the iceberg theory. What this theory, well, it was developed by Edward Hall in '76, and what this theory tells us is that looking at a person is like looking at it in the eyes of looking at an iceberg. When you see an iceberg, you only see the tip part. You don't see the mass at the bottom. So you really don't know what you really have. So just like with students coming to our classroom, we look at the way they dress, we listen to the way they talk, what kind of music that they listen to. But there's a whole massive amount of that student that we have yet to discover. As teachers, it is our responsibility to, as we say, look at the whole child, and that includes that entire iceberg. Parent communication. This is just one component of what it means to be culturally responsive to your students and your students' families and your whole school community. It involves building a strong communication with your families, building a partnership between home and school, maximizing effective communication with parents, developing, maintaining, and expanding skills to communicate effectively. And with this one, it says clearly communicate expectations. Now, for me, the word clearly is a lot more to it than we actually see. Clearly means that when you relay information to your parents and your students, you need to be sure that what you're saying is what they are hearing and interpreting based on their own cultural background or their own understanding. Because if that is not the case, then we are losing that clear communication from the beginning. Just like students, parents, they learn differently, they interpret things differently. It's just all based on their own expectations of what they expect out of you, out of their child, and what their own prior experiences were. And again, when we're communicating, there's so many ways to communicate, and there's so much stuff going in. And of course, then there'll be so much stuff coming out. We have to manage the idea. Here's a quick little video of managing the idea of a parent-teacher conference. I'll let you be the judge on how this conference went.
Okonayo. 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 That's my name.
Clearly, this is her first time meeting this parent.
That's my son. Hey, hey, sit down.
Now, we know that this may be a little extreme, but then again, is it?
What's that? You're doing the minute. Hey, 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 whoop it. Whoop it. I don't care. Whoop it for me. Hey, how can you come to school and y'all don't come? Hey, whoop it. You got whoop him. Hey, whoop him. Ah, come on, son. Don't spend my son, man. Yeah.
I'll have to file for her sexual harassment. Do not come closer to me. Okay, sir.
For you, and you, and I'll make sure.
No, he's not explaining.
He will pass this semester.
Sir.
It's impossible. He needs
He
to pass.
failed.
He needs to pass.
There's no way he can pass.
Give him extra credit or something. And I promise you, after today, and when I take him home, he'll be a good boy. He will study your class and he'll be have A. After today, I will crush him at home. He will be a good student. I will take him home and I will tell him and I will struggle him good. He will come back, he will be a good
Sir,
son.
we none of that.
I beg, let him pass now, man. He cannot fail this
Sir,
guy.
calm down.
He will do
Sir,
anything.
calm down. Calm
Help him.
down, sir.
Oh, come on now. Help me out. Why are you doing a thing like this now? Eh? You too. Eh?
Let's take a look at his report card.
Don't worry. Teacher, I'll tell you. Teacher, oh, tell me about the old people.
Failed.
Eh? You see? Eh? You're telling about eh? You're telling.
Sir, sir. None of that. None of
Eh?
that. None of that.
Let's go.
Sir, no, we'll have to call child attention. Sir, this is on you.
All right.
Let go of him. Let go of him, sir. Sir, this is on that.
Hold them.
Now, clearly, she wasn't prepared. We have to be proactive. In other words, we wouldn't want this type of meeting. Now, there were plenty other videos that would show you a typical, possibly right way. But I really want to show something because we don't know what to expect. We need to expect the unexpected if you don't know your parents. And sometimes even if you do know your parents, you need to know how to approach your parents or probably approach them prior to the child failing and know how to pronounce their names at least. Teachers have to consider how students and parents communicate best when it comes to the child's educational needs. Different cultures handle educational needs of their child different ways. So as a teacher, we should be prepared. You need to know your student, and you also need to know your family. Some strategies for communicating with parents in a culturally responsive way. This requires careful consideration regarding format and content. Now, we have to plan out what the agenda is for that parent if we're going to have a parent meeting or if we're going to help this child academically or help this family and the school community as a whole. Once you plan, you need to set goals of what you want to accomplish during this meeting. It's nothing wrong with having a small agenda when you have your parent conference or however you want to do it so that the parent is aware of why they're there and what the outcome should or could possibly be. These two things together, for me, help build that communication piece that we're talking about. You can have one-way communication, but it needs to be organized, concise, and accurate so that parents will read it and understand it. Examples can include report cards, school-to-home notebooks, newsletters, and written communication. That's where you send something home, and if the parent feels like it, they respond back. In some cases they do, and in some cases they don't. One of my favorites was the school-to-home notebooks because I work with special ed with children with significant disabilities, and most of them are nonverbal. So this was my way of communicating with my parents. You can also utilize two-way communication. This happens when there is a growing trust, a mutual concern, and an appreciation for a difference of opinion. Parents are not going to always agree with you, and you're not going to always agree with them. But the main outcome is the welfare of that child's academic needs. Some examples include, this is where you can have communication back and forth. A phone call home, parent-teacher conferences, child-led conferences, which is one of my favorites. We started at my school where the parent comes in and instead of talking to the teacher, the child guides them on the expectations of the classroom. And they can ask the child questions. That way, you know, when that child goes home or he or she has homework, the parent also knows that child knows exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And also home visits when appropriate. How can we get our parents more involved in the school community? One of the biggest strategies to promote parent involvement is relationship building. Um, Clearly, the other video shows that there was no relationship there with that parent and that teacher at all. The only time he was called was when the child was failing, and on top of that, there were behaviors and more things happening. It was at a point where there was no recovery for this poor student. So, in order to build those relationships with your parent, you can have them attend school events. You can have them volunteer. Of course, encourage them to please attend parent-teacher conferences. And provide your parents with qualified support. Here's another quick video on why it's important for those supports.
Senior cafe, Tony, tell your mama everything is fine. Tony's good kid, but Tony constantly disrupts the flow of my class. I always have to redirect him. He's always talking without permission. His conduct is really suffering because of it. His grade is skipping. Tell you what I said. You said we begin. Quit lying to your mama. Nothing about his conduct is being because he acts up. Ooh, and this is swell up. I'm gonna write you up all the time. On the 16th, man, put gun with cheek like and the little girl have, and the finger up couldn't get that, tell your mama that. And I'm listening to you. And you tripped the boy in the restroom, so now you're gonna cry. You're sad now. Wipe your face. Apologize to your mama. I know she don't raise you like that at home. I know who to call now. Y'all calling your mama. I don't know what number you put on the contact sheet. Every time you act up to my mama, you don't get the telephone no call.
Now, in this video, well, first of all, we talk about qualified supports. So with that being said, it's our responsibility as teachers to provide qualified support to bridge the gaps, such as interpreters, not students. I assume or propose in some cases, you may not have a choice but to use a student here and there, but I would not make it a tool to use every time you have a parent-teacher conference with a parent that you know needs more supports than that. It should not be left up to the student to relay any negative information to their parent via you. You can do communication through technology. A lot of teachers use that. This also helps to encourage their learning at home. A lot of teachers use examples like email to remind parents of homework assignments or they should check their child's notebook. Some teachers have YouTube channels so that they can push a little bit of a flipped classroom where they either have reminders on their YouTube channel with the homework assignments and maybe even some examples on how to complete the homework assignments, step-by-step instructions. You can have radio announcements. Of course, teacher websites are always wonderful. We're not always sure how much technology is in the home, but these are just a few things that can be done to help parents and support them in the home with homework. We should also encourage our parents to participate in decision making for our school. A lot of schools use PTAs and other avenues to come into the school to help support the teachers and all the students as well as their own. We have now what we call MTSS, which is a multi-tier support system. We also have the school improvement team, and we have the parent committee, where this one actually is held by parents, but these two are mostly with educators. However, this one, I think you have to have a parent on the committee, but most parents on these committees are not vocal. But we need to encourage them to be more vocal. We have to build those relationships because that is the key to how we're going to communicate with parents on a different level, on a more culturally diverse level. Some examples of bonding opportunities include meeting on neutral ground. Some parents are fearful of coming to the school because the assumption is my kid's in trouble or there's something wrong. Invite parents and families for a classroom or school-based activity or event. Ask for their advice on their child's needs as well as classroom assistance. Don't assume. Ask parents or family members to share their life or job or hobbies with your class. Personal phone calls for open house events are also wonderful. Sometimes parents get busy and you forget. So give them a quick phone call and say, we have open house tonight. We would like to see you there. Strategies for promoting community support for parents and families. You can have parents come in, or you can host events and activities that bring parents and families to the school. Establish a strong parent-teacher association. PTAs and PTOs go back a long, long way. A lot of schools, some schools, mostly elementary schools, it seems like, are still holding true to that. But it can be also possible for middle school students as well as high school students. A lot of these parents are hungry to come into the school system to help support teachers as well as their own students. It also builds relationships. You should create a warm and respectful and welcoming school environment. Parents should not be afraid to come into the school to visit the classrooms or to help support teachers, like I said earlier. What can you do first? Work with your school community to choose one or two things. This is a lot to try to do all at one time. But if you pick at least one thing, maybe two, to target for the year, over time you will build the program that you want in order to build your parent communication. Use your division's parent resource center. And some final thoughts. In order to become culturally responsive, remember, create a welcoming school climate. Provide families information related to student development. Establish effective school-to-home and home-to-school communication. Strengthen families' knowledge on what the school does. Engage families in school planning and leadership. Connect students and families to community resources. That ends my presentation. I thank you for your time, and I have thoroughly enjoyed you. Thank you very much. Goodbye.